listening to Reignite, a podcast about the real reason we play any BioWare game. It's all about that romance, baby! I'm Frankie.
And I am at AK Stormageddon.
And instead of bringing on one guest to talk about all the romances, we're bringing on all the guests to talk about the romance that meant the most to them.
And I'm Adam. I am here for the heart of Vetra Nyx.
Because everybody wants a spiky girlfriend.
I do especially, it turns out. Never wanted a spiky boyfriend, but you give me the one female Turian that's ever romanceable and I will be there.
So, why did you romance Vetra?
It's a great question. I have looked at this, comparing it to romances in other Mass Effect games especially, and then the Dragon Age games. This is actually a little more left field for me, personality-wise. I, during this run, was with Thane the whole time for our original Mass Effect trilogy. I typically go with, feelings, witches, and the like in Dragon Age, but suddenly if you give me big strong lady is big and strong and also a little soft, I also love that, it turns out.
So say we all, honestly.
I honestly think it is the softness that she works so hard to hide the entire time you're with her that makes me drawn to this particular relationship. Also, I made my little joking queer kid heartthrob checklist that I worked my way through. Emotionally difficult childhood, atypical of culture, aloof outside of chosen family, desperately wants to show love but untrained and clumsy, and then again, big strong lady is big and strong and soft.
These are all very good reasons. Was there someone else that you were contemplating?
On my first run through that I never actually finished, because I think I mentioned that when I was on a little bit ago, I did a near complete run through and then dropped off for a few years. I romanced Jal. You can kind of see the through line through feelings on that one, I think. The fact that he is such a in his feelings boy made me love Jal as well, but since it was a little intentional this time because I am so tired of everyone in my sphere being a Shakarian stan in the original trilogy, and I have literally never gotten it personally. He's great. I only ever view Garrus as a brother. I made a list of reasons Vetra's better than him. She's a better flirt.
That's true. I admit that.
She tries to cook me a steak.
It is very cute.
Garrus never tried to cook anything for anyone. That canon only needed adjusting so many times.
I think in Garrus's defense, though, he never really has the opportunity to cook for you.
I mean, also Garrus is a much bigger dork than Vetra is. Vetra is also of the dork variety, but I feel like Vetra definitely has her shit together on the inside more than Garrus does. Garrus is all facade. Like, the minute you get inside that shell...
He cracks, yeah.
Yeah.
Also, when you get together with Garrus, he's just so hung up on, like, me? You picked me?
Yeah. No one ever picks him until his association with Shepard in the first place. And yeah, I think Vetra does have her shit together a little better. She's kinda had to a lot of the time. Going back to the steak briefly, I do love that you have the option of saying that this could literally kill me. And then that kinda put a damper on making out with my spiky girlfriend, because I'm like, we have different amino acid builds, and I think that's an issue just from my knowledge of Quarians.
Oh, but Vetra doesn't seem to care about that.
She sure doesn't. Yeah, the makeout with Vetra was also the first time I have no problem with the spiny dinosaur folks, but I watched and I was like, can she feel me? Like, what's the feeling situation on the outside of the Turian faceplates? These are the questions I need BioWare to answer.
I need BioWare to answer for so much more, because I feel like Vetra gets a raw deal. She gets this really cute scene with the steak where she tries to cook you a steak and it just does not go well. She doesn't really know what a steak is.
Cow. She does specify, but she doesn't know if it's Earth cow or not.
And she, like, gets this, like, minimally spicy moment where it's implied that you guys are going to go have sex. But compared to some of the other characters who get, like, these huge cinematic scenes about the intimacy, I'm just like...
We could go there a little more. You had
gone a little further.
You had Jal and Liam fully nude for no reason.
Yeah, like, why? Why are you like this? Why are you like this, BioWare? Answer for the crime.
Yeah, I hadn't even thought of that, and I would say, talking a different BioWare game, but Inquisition has one of the more graphic sex scenes I've seen out of a BioWare romance. And
which one was that?
Sarah.
Okay, I haven't done Sarah's romance.
I thought of that specifically because I realized this is actually... My Ryder-Vetra relationship is the inverse of my Inquisitor-Sarah relationship, because my Inquisitor is usually a Kunari woman, and very serious and down to business while cutting jokes on the job. And then I have the girlfriend who's trying to get me to lighten up all the time. And that just sort of rings back to me as Ryder being the one that constantly has to say, okay, but this is actually exciting too. We're doing really cool stuff. And yeah, I would like a little more of the intimacy. I also would have not hated if they could have worked in any kind of a resolution that was me and Vetra and Sid. Have some sort of a little growth as a family unit of sorts.
Yes. Like, I just feel like there was something missing in the intimacy department. It doesn't have to be physical intimacy. It can be...
emotional, yeah.
Yeah, it could be showing them after the implied sex scene, and, like, now they're having a real heart-to-heart, and they talk about, are we gonna tell Sid? Maybe we should go see Sid. Like, something to really imply, like, oh, we're a family now.
Modding community, get on this.
Yeah, do it.
Fix the game for us.
Was there a moment that made you realize that Vetra was the one?
That's a great question. Honestly, I think it was meeting her at the docks when they try and hold up our clearance when we're leaving for the first time, and she just pulls the dock attendant aside and says, hey, you've got a brother in cryo, right? Family's important. I could get him bumped up for you. I know how bad that is. And she means it from both angles. She's doing it in the moment for me and us as a team, but I feel like she's somebody who, if she had gotten to know that guy a little bit better other than his statistics, she would probably try and work to help get his family out too, because it means a lot to her. And the family that came over with you means a lot to her.
That's a good one. Yeah, I like that. I had a similar moment of like, oh man, awesome.
And then rock climbing with her toward the end it's kind of backwards of a lot of BioWare romances for me, where you get the cool, splashy, sexy reveal moment that I'm like, okay, let's see where this goes. And then they give me feelings. It kind of hits me the other way around with her.
Yeah. Speaking of rock climbing, did anyone cheat?
No. I wanted to so bad, and I just couldn't cheat. I've cheated at the sharpshooting with Garrus so many times.
Yeah.
Like, that's a 50-50 split for me. But something about rock climbing my girlfriend, I could not jump jet, even if I thought I'd get away with it.
Matt, did you cheat when you went rock climbing with Vetra?
I did not.
Okay. I guess we're all just a bunch of goody two-shoes here then.
In this moment, at least.
I did enough renegade triggers throughout the rest of the game.
Adam, do you have anything else to add about Vetra?
I think we've hit basically all of it, except to reiterate, Big Strong Lady is big, strong, and soft.
Thank you, Adam, for sharing with us how much you love Vetra. I also love my big spiky girlfriend. Unfortunately, she is not who I romanced this time around. Hey, Matt, did you romance Vetra?
I did not.
Alright, anyone who voted for Vetra, you're out.
This is giving me Deal or No Deal vibes, and I love it. I always wanted to be one of the suitcase girls.
Hi, my name is Mike Kimball. I'm currently working doing grocery delivery, but I'm also an amateur RPG designer on the side, and I'm here to talk about Suvi's romance with Mass Effect Andromeda.
Awesome. Thank you for joining us, Mike. We're so happy to have you.
Yeah, I was actually surprised to find out that Suvi was your romance.
Yeah, okay. I don't know why, but I play a lot of my characters female, and for Suvi, for whatever reason, that was like my first instinct. PB kind of, I had some vibes with PB at first, but she was kind of like non-committal, so. And okay, you just can't turn down the accent. I had to know.
There it is.
It's always going to come down to that. We're going to get to that later, but yeah.
Amazing. So I guess to start, let's talk a little bit about what drew you to Suvi. Like you mentioned the accent, but like go into a little more detail about what drew you to that character.
Obviously, I mean, yeah, Suvi was. I knew that Mass Effect Andromeda was going to be opening up who you could romance and in what way, and they were going to be broadening the spectrum a bit. Suvi was the only character that was going to be exclusive to female writer, to my knowledge, and I wanted to see exactly how they were going to play that, because they have been a bit more open-minded about not just being titillating with their romances. And Suvi was an interesting approach to a character where she's very much talking about this, interplay between science and religious faith, which is the kind of territory that Mass Effect hasn't really broached very often before. So I was kind of curious just to get to know her more, and then I wanted to see where things went and how this was going to kind of deviate from the typical spend the entire game building up to one really great sex scene pattern they kind of had going with a lot of the other major characters. I wanted to know how this particular romance might be different. I'm not entirely sure why I keep insisting on playing female characters. I'm a cis straight guy, and for whatever reason, all of my characters are lesbians. It just doesn't make any sense to me at all.
I'm just saying, you might want to consider transing your gender.
One never knows.
Just trans your gender already.
Yeah, right? It's so easy.
That is a joke.
Yeah, I'll just push that button. Just poop.
Yeah,
poop,
it's just a
done.
button, right? That's all it takes.
Yeah.
I just want to point out that you're right, that Suvi's romance really does deviate from this, like, build up to a intimate sex scene, and then, you go into the final mission. Whereas with Suvi, I feel like it is very designed for the female gaze. Like, watching that video, there was nothing about it that made me feel uncomfortable or awkward or anything like that, because it was very much about these two women and how these two women interact, and not about how they interact for the entertainment of others.
Right. And, having that be a much more emotionally based relationship than physical, I think kind of helped. There's part of me that would really wish that they would have leaned into that a bit more, because you get these little tantalizing glimpses of this idea that both of these characters are just the most horribly awkward dorks. And you get little bits and bobs. And I really would have loved to see, BioWare fully committing to this idea that yes, dorks can be in romances too. And it can be just as hilarious as you'd expect when a person who accidentally hits on Gian Garson and licks rocks, is in a romance with the unintentional Pathfinder who spends half the game tripping over their own tongue.
Yeah.
I would have loved to see more of that, and just the little glimpses we got were funny enough.
Now, you mentioned that there were some vibes with PB, but was there anyone else that you were torn between when it came to Suvi?
I think on a future playthrough, I ended up trying to see what Vetra was all about because you just can't get away from the Turians in these games. There's just no avoiding the fact that there is some sort of inherent chemistry there.
Everyone wants a spiky girlfriend.
It's true. We've said it several times.
Yes. So I did eventually. I pretty much played the field at one point or another. PB Vetra and Subi. I haven't really, for whatever reason, I never vibed with Cora, which is always what fascinated me about this entire season for you guys. Is I was expecting, after the first 3 games, because you guys had the Kate Nalenko redemption tour, and and then I was figuring of all the characters that would be most likely to get, a more favorable impression, I thought it was going to be Liam. And then Cora, it turns out, actually, you guys had a bit stronger of a connection there than I really anticipated. I just never really vibed with her in particular. There was something, I don't know, she always felt more like the cool aunt than a romance option.
I can see that, though. I can see that.
Yeah, especially considering, that she was much more, had that sort of mentor-mentee relationship with my character's dad. And to then have that sort of bonding moment with her felt like it felt like a really weird generation gap, even though I don't think we're actually all that much different in age.
Also, a lot of people don't like Cora because she seems uptight, and that can rub people the wrong way a lot of the times.
I'm convinced the Karen hair was a mistake.
It was the obligatory bisexual haircut.
It's the undercut that does it.
Yeah. It just confuses people. They expect, one thing and they get something very different.
Oh, Cora.
I feel bad, but I'm glad you guys were able to redeem.
I think it was easier for us to like Cora because we had already been through this with Kaden, and we were like, we're not doing it again.
Yeah. We can see the patterns.
Yeah.
This is how we break the cycle.
Yeah, break the cycle. Yeah. But I was pleased to see that BioWare really kind of gave you a lot more options on and off ship, where you had the ability to romance someone like Reyes or Avila on Aya, where even if they are going to be much smaller than the average, on crew arc, and even Subi's to a certain degree, kind of, you get little bits and smaller portions as opposed to the full on, like, you get an actual mission, from most of your crewmates. But it was nice to see that they had different types of relationships they were exploring too.
I honestly feel like Suvi's relationship didn't get as fleshed out as Gil's did, which felt like a disservice. And I feel like they really went for it with half of the romances, and the other half they were like, we can stop here. It's okay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much of it is, that I'm pretty sure Gil, the voice actor, was the guy on Game of Thrones or something like that, and they hired him. But it felt like, a lot of the romances sort of stopped a little short compared to others. And I did like, I wish there was more, because Subi kind of feels a bit one note, the first time you play through, and you kind of have to dig a little bit to try and find material that kind of justifies, okay, this is actually a full-fledged character. They just didn't give her the lines to reflect it. But I did still like her as a character, and I did still like, the way that her romance played out. You didn't so much get to know each other deeper, but you did get to kind of bond around your commonalities. There's only a few scenes you get with Subi one-on-one that aren't unlockable just from conversation. But I will live and die if that one little moment where you just make Callow feel incredibly awkward. It's that one brief bit where it's like, I like you, and I think you're cute, and the accent, it's not the only thing, but it is. Oh.
Poor
and Callow's just like, kill me now.
Callow being the big baby about his best friend having a crush.
Yeah, but I wish that they'd explored Callow's relationship with Subi a bit more as well, because you get even with Gil, that sort of back and forth with Callow there's a whole job related to you, like, getting them to get over themselves. And I really feel, apart from that one scene where Lexi is berating Suvi for, licking a rock. But that would have been, I wish that hadn't occurred off screen.
Yeah.
I just the consequences. Yeah, that the character whose whole vibe is based around this really sexy accent, and then going with I lick a rock.
It is one of my favorite moments with Suvi, just platonically as well.
Yeah.
What was the moment for you when you went, this one? This is the one.
I don't really know if there was a moment. It was just one of those things where I wanted to see where this was going to go. I guess the fact that I don't have a whole lot of projection from my real life kind of allows me a bit more experimental. I was curious to see where this was going, because this wasn't going to be a standard BioWare build up to a sex scene romance. I wanted to see where this path led, because she is basically pinned to that front console chair, and you're like, okay, so where do we go from here? And it doesn't really go very far, but it was interesting to see what kind of relationships they were willing to explore in the context of this game. So I'm a bit too meta aware, unfortunately. I think that's probably where a lot of it came from. I dread no spoilers, so knowing that in advance was probably the problem.
Any closing thoughts before we wrap up?
There are a whole bunch of little bits about Subi that you only get through emails and backstory prompt. Like, apparently you will eventually adopt a puppy. Subi will try and jumpstart the dogs or something to that effect, and she'll sign you up to get on the adoption list with her. And apparently there's a moment way back when, before when they first launched the initiative, Suvi apparently got a little bit too tipsy at a party and hit on Gian Garson, and by mistake, because she was complimenting the dress. There's so many of these little bits that I like finding out about after the fact, but I kind of wish we were able to explore in dialogue. And I hope maybe in the future they can kind of build some of that in, give a bit more breadth to these interactions.
Hey there, I am Ken the Shepherd from Normandy FM and other freelance places on the internet, and I am here to talk about Gil.
Gil, for those who have to know, is our wonderful engineer on our ship. He has a rivalry with Callow, and maybe not the best romantic storyline that we've ever seen. But I love him anyway.
He's got stuff going on. He's trying, it's honestly everything that surrounds him that is terrible. He is perfect. He is good. He is my favorite person on this ship. It's just everything that everyone puts on him that's bad. It's the heteronormative forces followed us to Andromeda, and just they're he's dealing with them. He's going through it, but he's good. It's just everybody else is the problem.
My favorite thing about Gil is that he leaves a fake poker journal around to fuck with everybody.
It's great. The whole poker storyline is chef's kiss. I love that bit.
Yeah, it was one of the I really love. Well, I like poker as this running theme through his storyline, but I love how it's used flirtatiously as well. I don't know if people don't talk about this enough. I really love Mass Effect Andromeda's romance writing, because it is perfect modern flirtatious dialogue. Because you had that whole conversation with Gil where writer says that, oh, we could play strip poker, and he's like, not how I'd want to get you naked anyway. And I was like, that would work on me. That line would work on me. And then you have this entire scene with him where you finally go play poker on the Nexus, and it's got that's where some of the shit starts to come up. But the flirtatious banter always framed around just him being this very skillful reader of people in this card game. It's always just very good. And I love how that extends beyond his relationship with Ryder. It is the thorn in everyone's side on the Tempest. That everyone's just somebody's got to take this guy down. Somebody's got to knock him down a few pegs, and they fail every time.
Oh, Gil. Should we talk about the most important person in his life aside from Ryder and the Tempest, I guess?
I mean, she's very insistent, so we probably should.
So Gil has a best friend named Jill, which is terrible writing, and why did they do that?
Cute. It sounds cute on paper until you say it out loud.
Yeah. And then they also like poke fun at themselves for doing it. If you can make fun of yourself for doing it, you could have just not done it in the first place.
That is true. Why don't we talk a little bit about why this storyline is a problem and why we find difficulty in it, especially for you, Ken, as you were pursuing the romance.
I was of a couple minds of it because I do think there is something, at its core, I think there is something interesting about a gay man going across, the galaxy and then like, certain realities of what they have to do in, this migration initiative. Like it does, you have that moment where you think of like, oh, we're here to make babies, right? Like we have to make babies to like continue to exist beyond what we're doing. And I like the idea that like plants a seed and said that he's like, I have simply vibed through my entire life. I vibed 600 years into another galaxy. And, to have a moment where he, this one little thing that also like ties into his identity, like even if it doesn't feel like it's, like even if the storyline had gone in a direction where it wasn't like core to his personhood, basically, I do like the idea that like he gets there and this one thing just kind of like starts to like plant the seed in his head. They're like, oh, I don't really have any attachments, do I? Like I've kind of like I've got Jill, but I just on a whim decided to travel to the Andromeda Galaxy, and I kind of like that as the spark for a sort of a character that's kind of like learning to be responsible and like put down roots and have some sense of direction in his life. My issue with the framing of it is that it becomes so central to his storyline in a way that feels like his agency is taken away, like at the very end. Because now it's not so much about like, do I want kids? Like, what do I want to do with my life in this new galaxy? It becomes about like, oh, my friend really is very insistent on this thing, and it was it's an interesting tension to suddenly deal with. Like roughly halfway through the relationship, if you're playing male writer and pursuing it, as I was, because it played into a lot of stuff that I was doing in this game because I was writing a writer that came kind of similar to came to the Andromeda Galaxy like it's this very chaotic mess that flirts with everybody, and even if he gets shot down, but then he picks up right where he left off, like it was nothing. Like I love flirting with straight men in BioWare games. Like sure they'll say no, but like I got to flirt with a guy in a video game, so like it's all relative to what Mass Effect 1 was. But I liked watching Gil and my writer kind of like grow alongside each other as they're both dealing with who they were in the Milky Way and kind of like who they want to be in Andromeda. And I even don't hate the idea of, them both becoming fathers and like having Jill be the surrogate for them. What I am frustrated with is the way that it's framed. It's not Gil like looking into this himself. It's it being brought on to him by his friend, who we get one scene with. She's nice enough, sure. When you're talking about the entire repopulation effort of the Andromeda Initiative, and you're framing it around a gay man sort of like figuring his shit out, and that's the only context you ever talk about it, like that reads really weird to me. That you're like, okay, you bring out there's nobody needs children to like have fulfillment in their life. I don't have kids. I don't plan on having kids, and that's not something I feel like I'm lacking in my life. I'm finding fulfillment in other things, and Gil was doing that too. Like he's really passionate about like what he does at the Tempest and engineering, and like that's the entire crux of his and Callow's rivalry, is that they both have such stark different worldviews about like what they need to be doing out here as a Pathfinder team, and all that's good. Like you're really filling out this character who is seems to just be chilling and just going with the flow, but really has like very principled things that he cares about, and is not willing to put everyone's lives in danger because Callow's feelings got hurt. And so I always end up siding with him, not just because, we do it for the dick, but but because, he's right. Okay. So like you fill out this character in such a really great way, and like he's really lovable, he's really passionate and principled, and then you're just like, what if we had his friend tell him he should have a baby? And like be really insistent upon that. And I liked the idea of him sort of pursuing that on his own time, but when it just feels like the writing just takes a hard right turn at the very end, where a woman is insisting that this gay man procreate because that is how we survive. I understand the necessity. I like the ideas that it is sort of exploring with him just having this like inner turmoil, this introspection about his life, framed around the idea like, does he want a kid? Like what does his future look like? But when the conversation ends, and it's like one of the last conversations in the game is about like, should I go through with this? Should I have this baby that my friend is insistent on? And I think honestly, in the romance ends up faring a little bit better because the framing seems more about like Jill wants to be the surrogate for this gay couple, which is I think better than when you're in a friendship route with him and it just seems to be like, oh my friend said that I should help her make this baby and be a dad.
Yeah.
Why?
It would be completely different if Gil walked in and said, so Jill is trying to have a baby, and I was wondering if maybe I should ask her if I could help. Like, if it was his idea, if it was something that he felt would be satisfying for him. But it's not. It's Jill as the driving force.
Yeah, and I think I said back in the it's been so many years since we did Andromeda and Normandy, but I think I said back then like I think like the way that I think they could have redeemed Jill's place in this and also like kept Gil's agency in the story, you know, as much as a BioWare character gets in a game where you know the player's making choices and such. Like if say like Gil had been looking into this stuff and then like Jill comes to Ryder and being like, hey, I was just busting his balls all this time. I didn't think he was gonna take it seriously. This is all a joke. I was just, you know. And then you know you sit there with Gil and it's like, but is this something that you want actually? Like you know the seed was planted by Jill talking to you about these things, but is this something that you feel that you would get something out of? Like, do you want to be a father? But you know that's me like you know armchair narrative design. But I do think like you know like I think there were good intentions. I think it just ends up crashing hard at the very end. Because I do really like that my Ryder and Gil ended up dads. In a hypothetical Mass Effect 5 that has anything to do with Andromeda, like that Gil and Ryder are going to be dads, and they are going to be kind of, you know, people that are ushering, you know, this new life for humanity out in the Andromeda galaxy. I just think it sucks that this is how I got it, and you know, I mean, I think if like even like one or two consultants had been like, hey, maybe just like change it just this much, and it'll be so much better. I think that would have been great. And it's this weird cloud over Andromeda that, a game that I, in spite of everything, actually very much love. It's my second favorite Mass Effect game, and you know, it has that relationship that I do. You know, it's very central to why I like that game so much. Like, I like this idea of Ryder being this person that is kind of just leading humanity into the future in this new place, and the idea that he and his husband and his like space husband baby daddy are just like holding hands with their kid as they walk into the future is very enticing to me. Even as a person that doesn't want kids, they fumbled it at the very end, I think.
I agree with you. I agree wholeheartedly. I think Gil deserves to have the family that he didn't really get the chance to have growing up, but he deserves to have it on his own terms.
Like a little bit of agency, as a treat.
Yeah. Out of curiosity, was there ever a point where you were torn between Gil and someone else, or was it Gil all the way?
So it was Gil all the way, but in my like book of headcanon / like just like the way that I like play the game and kind of like trying to make choices that don't like, you know, necessarily lead to anything, but just like color in the character for me. My Ryder's a hoe. He's out here flirting with everybody. I've seen all of the romances through to the end just because I wanted screenshots of all of them. So like for me, the actual road to getting to Gil and this like level of stability that he does eventually offer actually came from my Ryder. Like I do this thing where like I flirt with Reyes up to the point where I don't know if all y'all are at that point.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay, so it's like the point where Reyes betrays you, or doesn't even betray you, but like you find out that he's been lying to you. And I shot that motherfucker. I was like, you're not gonna lie to me, this guy that you were just hooking up with. No, you're not. This is not how this goes. This is not how this works. And so I shot him, and then I got that email where he was like, "Oh, we'll still have the scar to remember you." And I was like, "Fuck yeah, you will. You're gonna have that shit forever. Live with it." So then, you know, you get to Gil, and you're like, no, maybe I do want somebody that I can like rely on that's gonna be there for me. I don't really like the Jaw romance that much. Like, I mean, it's one of those things where like, okay, I appreciate that they you know, made the patch to make that like you know a more inclusive queer romance, but I also just like I play through it and it feels like a palette swap. Like it feels like it was written for female Ryder and it's animated like it's written for female Ryder, and it just didn't really jive with me in the same way that Gil did. You know, and I've talked about this in Normandy. I've written about this in other places. I do like when BioWare romances feel tailored to specific iterations of a character that you can like really kind of see like they were like, okay, we wrote this with this dynamic and this story in mind, and it just kind of feels like they plopped male Ryder into that. And you know, and that like I no shade to anybody that likes the Jaw romance. I just kind of feel like it did not fit my Ryder in a way that made me ever want to pursue it.
That's fair.
And by the time that they added it, I'd already beaten the game like twice and done the Gil romance, and so I was like, yeah, this is my story. This is how this goes.
I'm so curious to ask this question, knowing you as long as I have now. Do you think they're your type in real life?
Gil is 100% my type in real life. I need someone just as insufferable and annoying as me.
Oh, that's the best answer I could have asked for. Thank you. But yeah, I mean, I'm guessing that like you see qualities in Gil and through his story, since you talk so passionately about it, that you could see if you met a man in life that was similarly, you could fall for them too.
We would not have children though. That's not.
That's
Hard no.
valid.
No
Totally fair. So valid of you.
Was there a moment with Gil that made you realize he was the one, like during the story?
I think like when you first meet him, you like look at him. I mean, he was just it's fine. But I think the scene that like really got at me was that first banter about the strip poker, because that was, again, like I said, like that feels like you could put that transcription on Grindr and I believe it. And so I think it was that one, because like that is just like a very like fun flirty dynamic that I really enjoy in real life. And I think that was the point where I kind of was like starting to write in my head who my writer was, like alongside learning it, because like that's how these games work when you're kind of first playing for the first time. You're kind of like learning as you go how you fit into the world and how your character reacts to things. And I just like really loved that scene and that banter and the performances from both Tom Taylorson and Gavin Anthony, because they were just like very, very like a lot of chemistry there. And so like that is the romance that I'm already starting to want to pursue, and it kind of just helped me write my writer's story along with it.
And any final thoughts? Any summaries?
Give me Mass Effect 5 that takes place in Andromeda and is about Ryder and is about them having all their cute little space babies, and keep Shepard dead. Don't bring them back. It's not Mass Effect 4. It's Mass Effect 5. If I keep going, then I'm gonna keep out here forever. But I really want to see that story continue. Like all jokes aside, I would like to see the future for those two, if BioWare will let me have it, and if they don't, I will just cry about it on the internet.
Hi, I'm Spectre Elifet, and I am a sometimes streamer. We do a lot of World of Darkness stuff and a lot of indie stuff on my channel, Archives of the Dragon, when I'm around. And I'm here to talk about Reyes' relationship.
There's a heavy sigh in there.
The one that hurt me the most.
Look, I love Reyes. I really do. But it is definitely that kind of relationship where you get off planet, get back on planet, and be like, and another thing.
Yeah, for sure. This one hurt me the most.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like Reyes, okay, so like I go back and forth on my playthroughs, but Reyes is one of those things where I'm like, I have to interact with your romance at all times, just because I love you, but I hate you, but I love you, but I hate you. And on top of that, like going through the entire relationship to the end, you're just like, I don't know if I'm doing the right thing, but I'm happy, so I guess I'm Queen of Kadara now.
I do love that. Here's the thing. If you support Reyes fully, yes, you are basically queen or consort or whatever of Kadara. Or king consort, whatever you want to call it. However, if you are a dumbass who sees a sniper and is just like, no brain, save lady, then you ruin your relationship.
Yep.
And you don't get to like take him to the side and be like, sweetie, that was not a nice thing that you did.
Yeah, I know, it's so bad. And the silly thing is, in both cases, with both Sloane and Reyes, I love their second in command. Like, I'm fine with either one of them, but the two of them, I'm just like, both of you are super problematic. I just happen to like one of you better.
Yeah, for sure. And like, I don't love what happens to, what's his name?
No! Oh god, what is his name?
What is his name? It's
Yeah.
not Kandros, that's someone else.
No, it's yes. She has a lovely, loyal little man who's just like, I am going to like get this done for you. And I'm like, can I keep you? I just want to keep you. Like, you don't have to be part of this. I'm not sure I want to be part of this, but we're here now.
Yeah, he's great. And every time Sloane is like, I'm going to show up and do something, he's like, can you not?
Exactly.
Can you maybe go back to your safe throne where nothing bad can happen to you? And I know where you are?
And the worst bit of Sloane is like you can see where she had a point and when the point just kind of fell off the deep end. Like honestly, one of the things that I like about Reyes for like purposes of the plot is that he is willing to let the Angara have a titular seat there and like look like they're in charge. I know that's not being actually in charge, but Sloane is not willing to do that full stop. So it's very, this is problematic. I really, one of you be better.
Isn't he more interested in a partnership with the Angara than
Yes.
he is in giving them like a false sense of control?
It's true, but we also have to acknowledge that like when he puts the Angara on, like in charge of Kadara, he's still the power behind the throne. He didn't like give up
Right.
anything. He's just like, yeah, fine, partners. But if it's like problematic for me, I will probably do something else. And you're just like, Reyes, sweetie, honey, we had a lovely drink and a kiss, and I need to talk to you.
Oh, but I love him though. I love him in his Han Solo vibe.
I do too. Honestly, I think his romance is one of the most exciting to play through. It's very like, I'm not going to say that you were going to go through this and feel like a really good person for loving Reyes. You're not. But you're going to be like, this was so much fun. And why are we running through the supply closet and making out? Sure, this is happening now. I'm great with it. I also like his opening line as he walks up to you for the first time and you're just like, I'm going to like you whether I like it or not, huh?
Yeah, he's one of those characters that like the smarm I can sense from like a mile and a half away. And that's why I think I bounced off him so much, is because I was like, oh, I know your shtick. I usually do this shtick. I see what's going on here.
I just think if Reyes was a real person, you just like, you would spend a lot of time being like, why are you the way that you are? Like, I love you, but why?
I have friends like that.
I also think like to do a Reyes romance, you have to be like really comfortable in being in a partnership that is challenging to both sides, because I always play my Pathfinders super like, we're going to get the Angara to be the ones mostly in control of this space because it's theirs and we're just interlopers. And like, I want to make sure that we're being good guests in this space. And also, I gotta fight some evil dudes and it's gonna be fine. And then there's Reyes out here going, I'm gonna be the worst person and the best person ever simultaneously. And you're just like, can we work on the actual problem or do you have to rule the thieves? Like, I don't know what's happening, but I love you.
He is such a king of thieves.
He is. It has very like Aladdin or Sinbad kind of vibes, and I think that's
Sinbad more than Aladdin.
right. And
Aladdin is a little too goofy.
It's true, but I was thinking more of like from the Arabian Nights, where he's just like,
Okay.
yeah, I'm going to kill my uncle. It's going to be fine. It's very that kind of vibe, and I really, really, really enjoy. I also feel like Reyes in like long-term relationships, if he opened up to like a polyamorous relationship, if BioWare would ever give us that, he would be a good candidate for that, because like you both would be busy all the time. So it'd be like, no,
Yeah.
that's my person, but like I also don't care, so it's fine. Like we're fine. I come back, we yell, it's good.
Now, you said earlier that you go back and forth in your playthroughs. Is there someone you go back and forth between?
Look, Jal walks up to me on the first time we land, and I'm always like, this was not my plan. And he says, good, because that would be a bad plan. And I'm like, oh, damn it, I'm in love with you again. Please stop.
Jal.
And I recognize those are two very like opposite vibes, because Jal has very like good boy,
for sure.
good boy vibes. But I think that's what kind of like makes Reyes an interesting counterpoint to that, because like if you're somebody who's just like, I really do want to save the universe, but I'm not necessarily always like on the most lawful paladin vibe of trying to do that, they're both different methods of trying to get to that point. And so if you spend, I mean, I actually like the wheel, even though it doesn't have a lot of impact on like the final thing. I like how it gives me more RP to do. And I'm like, I like being sort of casual, but also like wanting everybody to get along without having to be like, this is my militaristic desire for you to do this and get in line. Like I'm not that player. My boyfriend is that player. And I'm just very like, I love you and I know why I love you, but this is not my vibe. So like Reyes and Jal are just I have heart and I want to do this. And Reyes is like, but what if we just did a little bit of chaos and got there faster?
What if we did a little bit of crime as a treat? Just a little bit of murder.
Exactly.
Just sprinkle it right on our cake.
And like I also empathize with the concept of Kadara, because when they mutinied, right, there's not a lot of space in that universe at the time they were mutinying to live successfully without the Angara, New Tuchanka is a thing, but like it's a Krogan thing. And if you're not a Krogan, that is sort of a problem. So I recognize that there was a point in the mutiny because they didn't think they were going to survive. Kadara is troubled. It's certainly not easy, but there was a chance of survival there. And given that it was always going to be troubled and always not going to be easy, I see where Reyes comes up. He can get things done. He can get supplies to people. It's not good. He's not doing it in any like positive manner in a lot of ways, but he's also making sure everybody survives. And so with Sloane, and I think that's what makes that so difficult in that moment where you're like, look, boyfriend, be better, but also you. I don't know why you turned left and went, never mind, I'm evil now.
Yeah, I think that the complexity of this narrative is what makes it the most interesting, even if it's not always the best written or the easiest to navigate. I'm curious, you mentioned your IRL partner. Do you think that Reyes is your type in real life?
No, I think I am closer to being Reyes than we joke because he says he's a cleric and I'm the rogue. And I'm like, okay, here's the thing. All of my solutions are stabbing. So if you want the solution to be anything other than stabbing, you better fix it by the time I get there.
It's true. It's how I live as well.
And he goes, but I don't want you to get arrested, baby. And I'm like, well,
and you better save some money to bail me out.
Exactly, right? Also, bold of you to assume I'd be caught.
Yeah,
I mean,
true.
self-love is key, though, right? And if you're like Reyes, I mean, it's a version of loving yourself.
Yeah, and I for the audience, I want to state that I am not like Reyes in a way where I'm like, yes, I'm going to screw people over and kill people. That's not my point. But like, I do agree that there's a lot of situations where the answers are not clear-cut, and a little bit of just going straight from A to B, even if it's semi-problematic, can help more people than just being like, well, the form says this.
For sure. One of the last things I wanted to ask before we wrap up actually is, was there a moment with Reyes where it crystallized that this pain in the ass was the man you desired?
Is it cliche when they gave you the choice to make out in the closet? I was like, yes, this is it.
I don't think it's cliche.
It was just very like that. And then on top of that, like it's cemented it because you just sat and drank afterwards. And I was like, yeah, that's the vibe.
Look, if the Andromeda Initiative helmet fits, wear it, right?
If I can add to that, Jal is my guy all day, every day. But like Spectre, sometimes it's Reyes because he's Reyes. Look at him.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But at the same time, this moment where you're both drinking and you're sitting on top of whatever it is you're sitting on top of, and you're talking about why you came to Andromeda, and he tells you that he came to be someone.
Yeah.
That's the moment for me.
It's so good. And then you just sit there going, yeah, he's gone about it a bad way. But like I sit there going, if we ever got a second installment, I could see a really good plot line there between like Reyes going farther down I'm the shadow broker of all things and becoming responsible to be somebody. And I think the Pathfinder could be a really good catalyst for that.
Yeah, I agree. Any final thoughts about Reyes? Any summaries or astute observations you'd like to make before we wrap up?
No, I just want more people to come yell at him with me.
Hey everyone, Matt aka Stormageddon here with my producer hat on. So we were originally going to air this as one episode, but it ran a little long, so we're splitting it into two parts. So this is a quick and dirty outro for part 1, but in 2 weeks we'll be back with part 2, the rest of the romances, and the reveal Who I Romanced. We'll see you then, and good luck, Pathfinders.
Life is a mystery. Everyone must stand alone. I hear you call my name, and it feels like home. Feels like home.
Hey there, Screen Beans. Have you heard about Screen Snark?
Rachel, this is an ad break. They aren't screen beans until they listen to the show.
Fine. Potential Screen Beans. You like movies and TV shows, right?
I mean, who doesn't? Screen Snark is a casual conversation about the movies and television shows that are shaping us as we live our everyday lives.
That's right, Matt. We have a chat with at least one incredible guest every episode, hailing from all walks. We've interviewed chefs,
Writers, costumers, musicians,
yoga teachers, comedians, burlesque dancers,
folks in the film and TV industry.
and more.
We'd be delighted for you to join us every other Monday on the Certain POV Podcast Network.
Or wherever you get your podcasts, fresh and tasty off the presses.
What? That's not.
Can I call them Screen Beans now?
Fine.
Screen Beans!
So tune in and we'll see you at the movies or on a couch somewhere.
'Cause you're all Screen Beans now.
CPOV. CertainPOV.com.